The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, Earnestly Speaking podcast. Let's get it. I'm a giant in New York, in Miami carry heat. So much more in store, my product can flood the street. Opinion Nation Godfather, CEO. Puff in the late 90s, gon' see me blow. Oh, got my hustle on, no imitation of that. Army of untouchables, Opinion Nation staff. Never an off season, homie, check the numbers. Heart throb in my own right, supplying southern comfort. Earnestly speaking, my ego is well fed. Earnestly speaking, you're too feeble and no threat. See, I'm like a hurricane, you're a mild breeze. Earnestly speaking, leaving Eli a dynasty. Shake!
Earnestly Podcast, coming to you Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. If I sound tired, you damn right I am. And my voice sounds a little strained, you motherfucking right I am. How you guys doing? What a weekend here for me here personally. We'll get to that in a second. Of course, this podcast you can find on all podcast catchers, such as Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, you name it. It has been a great weekend. Had a little three-day weekend. My third day, of course, today. Before back to work. And I'll get to that in a second. Before I do that, I have a quick health update here on my end. I went to the doctor recently to get my blood work. I do that every 3 months now because I am type 2 diabetic, and I'm also high blood pressure and all this stuff. I did not deal with for years, and you guys know the story of that. I've been doing this for 2 years now, and it's been a struggle in a sense, sometimes like to adjust because I do like what I like. I like carbs and, sweets and stuff of that nature. But I've been really trying to fight the good fight. And I am doing that. I got some really good news, though. On my last visit, my A1C went down to under 7 now. Now, if you guys remember that, when we first started this process 2 years ago, 2 years and some odd months ago, my A1C, which of course is your overall glucose, was at 11.4, which is dangerously high. Like 7. Like, first off, if you guys don't know where the diabetes tiers are, so if you are below 5 point, the number is 5.7, 5.8, you're not in diabetic range at all. Okay. Now, if I think from 5.7 to 6.8, 6.7, I think it is, you're considered diabetic. And anything above that, that's pre-diabetic. Anything above 6 points, I think 6.5, 6.6, I think it's diabetic. Now I've been on metformin for the last couple of years as well in this process, and I remember the first 3 months when I first started doing metformin, and I started really getting really strict the first 3 months after I found out I was diabetic. My number dropped from 11.4 to 7.1. I think it was 7.1. But I've been in that 7 range for a good while now. And then at one point recently, I went up to 8.1, 8.2. So I got relatively not strict, but what happened last couple months, I know what's helped me. The reason I dropped down to 6.8 was because I think in addition to trying to, I got strict on fasting again. This is after the holidays. Got strict on fasting again. I started working out a lot more, walking every day. Because first off, one of the things I say, in addition to eating healthier, and obviously nutrition is 80% of the whole thing anyway. But in addition to that, you have to move. You have to move. Walk, work out, do weights, the whole nine. I have started going to the gym regularly now. I've been slacking off the last week or so because, again, schedule's been kind of weird because the kids are home from school and all that. But I have been in the last couple months been really ratcheting up things in the gym. I even told you guys on the last solo episode I did, I started doing TRT, which is testosterone replacement theory, which is the hormones. Because one of the things I found out also prior to the 3 months was that my hormone levels were extremely low. and I found out my numbers of that went through the roof. Being on the therapy, being on the hormone therapy. So my numbers I think was like in the 300s, which is very very low. Come to find out, first off, they want you to be in the 900s. Number one, that's where you should be, hormones wise, testosterone wise rather. And then finding out doing the process, the 5 week cycle, and I'm getting to the thousands, 1,007. So that's a great number. I'm gonna be staying on this pretty much for a long time on the therapy. Now it's a lot of money. I mean, I guess that's all relative to whatever, but it's a couple $100 every few months, every 5 weeks, but I guess it's worth it at the same time. I'm gonna go back on another round of that very soon to keep my numbers high because there's two ways to get the therapy. You can either get a little pellet in your back, so it's a small invasive procedure to put in your back, and the thing this disintegrates in 6 months. Disintegrates. Or I get the shots every week, put myself in my buttocks or my arm, whatever it be. And for 5 weeks, you can do that. It's a whole lot cheaper. Which I decided that option because I felt like I wanted to see if that would work first. And that has worked for me. I remember those 5 weeks, I was very energetic. Everything was working. I was so aware. I was going to the gym almost every day. I was walking every day. Having a lot more sex. Everything worked. Everything was great. So I seen the results of the good in being on TRT. I recommend to everybody else, obviously check with your doctor first. Make sure you are okay to do that. But I'm in my mid-40s now. Your testosterone starts to drop after the age of 30, little by little by little by little. But again, I haven't really started making health a strict. I haven't really been I never made health a priority in this way until the last 2 years. So this is a whole new world for me. This is a whole new world for me where I'm really starting to take this stuff really seriously. In many ways. Now, look, am I perfect? No. Last night we'll tell you a story. We went to a mini family vacation this weekend. Ate like shit a couple times. It's gonna happen, but you got to balance it out. You can't just overindulge in it. And one of the things I will say I've been really good at the last couple of years is that even if I eat something bad, I don't overindulge in it. That's one of the things that got me into this mess in the first place was that I would have, for example, I love rice, for example. But my problem for years is that I would have a lot of rice. I'll have like a plate of rice with food, with chicken, with protein, which is fine. But then I'll have like 2 or 3 more plates at the same time in the same session. And you can't be doing that. So I worked on that part. Portion control, for example, has been a massive thing for me in the last couple of years, honestly. That's helped. But I finally see the tunnel, the end of the tunnel. Like when I say I mean in a positive way, I mean sort of like, okay, I see the results. When I'm putting work in, I'm working out, I'm eating relatively better. It helps. You're seeing the numbers drop and improve. Cluster numbers are good. Everything is good. My blood pressure has been relatively decent. So everything is in where it should be. Oxygen levels are great. A1C is dropping, which is good. My goal for the next 3 months, by the time we get to, I believe, so I did my work in May. So June, July, I mean August for my next checkup. My goal before going to New York in August is to get my A1C down to under 6. Okay, if I get that shit to under 6, I'm a happy man because I'm going to New York with my wife to, as you guys know, I'm going there to see System of a Down and Korn in concert. I'm going for a couple of days. It's gonna be one of my first vacations we've done, her and I, without our kids. I think since we became parents, honestly. So I want, that's a goal of mine to make that happen. The problem for me is that the summertime is hard because my kids are home, we do activities and all that stuff, and I have to stick with the program, even though the kids want to do this and they want to go out. There's birthday parties, there's parties here. We got gatherings with friends and family. We got a lot going on this summer, which we already kicked off this past week, which I guess I get to right now. So you guys know, I've been saying that my family and I have been planning a little mini trips here. We do a lot of these mini trips, to Disney and whatever. So this weekend, I got to see Metallica for the 5th time in my life. I saw them in 1997, I saw them in 1999, 2004, and 2017. However, this one was the most special for me because this is the first time I saw Metallica with my wife and my children. And my kids, specifically my youngest, Logan, was absolutely excited for this concert. Could not wait. And the show did not disappoint at all. It was we live in West Palm Beach, so our trip to Tampa, which was the shows at, which Metallica did 2 shows in Tampa. One on Friday, then one on Sunday. By the way, this tour, people are asking why didn't it come to South Florida? Why not doing this place here? Yeah, remember the guys. These guys are in their 60s. These guys are in their 60s, so they can't tour the same way they used to. They can't go to every single city and be in the same shape. So their tours now are very strategic. What I've noticed with the U.S. leg, for example, would have done, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but follow me here. The states that are much more wider in space, I think they do multiple shows there. So like a state like okay, for example, they do a show in New York or in Jersey, the tri-state area. They'll do 2 shows there so everybody can come in the area, and I'll give them 2 options to go. If they play, say, Maryland, like a couple weeks ago, or they do, say, Charlotte, North Carolina, did like 2 weeks ago, okay, they'll do 1 show because the state's relatively smaller in comparison to other states. Florida's a big state. Tampa's central-ish in a way, not in the middle of the state, but it's in the middle, but to the west. So a lot of people from South Florida, North Florida come down to see the show, and you got 2 options to go see it. Obviously, the 2 shows are special because each show is different. Each show is different set, no repeats. So if they play, for example, Enter Sandman on one show, they won't play the other show. I got Enter Sandman on my show. Don't really care to hear Enter Sandman personally, not because I don't like the song. I'm a hardcore fan. I want to hear the new shit. I want to hear all the old heavy shit. I want to hear all the rare stuff. I'm the fan that does not care to hear Sad But True, Enter Sandman. I'm okay with one. One's a great song, which I did get to see, by the way. I want to hear Leper Messiah. I want to hear Phantom Lord. I want to hear Call of Cthulhu, which I did hear as well too. Sanitarium, which I did as well. I'm that fan. I'm hardcore, so I want to hear all the rare stuff and then the new album. And unfortunately, the songs I enjoyed from the new album the most that they played on Friday. They played 72 Seasons on Friday. They played also my son's favorite song on the album, If Darkness Had a Sun. So he was a little disappointed to get to hear that song. But we got to hear Lux Eterna. You got to hear Screaming Suicide here on in the show here. But it was a great show. We took a 4-hour drive. My wife worked a little bit. We got her at work about 1:00 in the afternoon. Drove straight to Tampa. Got there about 5-ish because there was a lot of traffic getting there. In fact, it was so fucked up because we get there and there's traffic about a mile out from the stadium, which is crazy. And by the way, first time here at Raymond James Stadium, that's home of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was so condensed with people. Then we find out they have parking, paid parking outside the stadium at other locations for like $50 and stuff. I'm like, holy shit, that's a lot of money. Thank God we parked there. You know why? Because we found out that parking at the stadium itself was going for $200 fucking dollars. $200 for parking at the stadium. That is insane. Okay, so on top of us paying her, wife and I and the kids combined, paid close to $400 for the tickets. Which, by the way, cool story. By the way, also to that, our seats were actually at the top of the stadium. I opted to get the top of the stadium because I like being on top. To be honest with you, I like watching the whole stage and the sound and all that stuff. I don't need to be close necessarily. However, I got an email last week from Ticketmaster saying that they're going to, due to production issues, they're going to move our seats down from the 300 section to the 200 section. Now I was stoked because initially that's what I wanted to buy was the 200 section, and this pretty much the same section I wanted to sit at, I got, but I didn't do anything. And sure enough, my seats were really good. I was able to see the entire stage. I was able to, be close to the bathrooms and all this stuff. So it was a really, really cool experience. So we get there, we park about a mile out from the stadium, which is fine. You know why? Wife and I are health nuts now. We're fitness nuts now. So we'll get our steps in. So we parked out $50, whatever. Parked it my wife in the stadium. Nice little walk. Walk up to the stadium. There's this group of like Christians, but I don't call them Christians. I think they're fucking freaks because they're not Christ-centered people, in my opinion. You know those Westboro Baptist people. I don't think they're Westboro Baptist people, but they're people who are trying to profess Christ is king and this stuff, which he is. But they're sitting there yelling, protesting the show, saying that Metallica is Satanist and James Hetfield. The worst. Here's the funniest part, which is so funny, and I had to like laugh and literally approach a person saying this. He was calling James Hetfield a pedophile. Now, you can say many things about Metallica. You can say many things about James Hetfield. I'm sorry, nobody's gonna believe you when you say James Hetfield was a pedophile. James Hetfield, of all the people on this fucking planet, James fucking Hetfield being a pedophile, get the ever-living shit out of here, okay? And I told the guy, what about Lars? What about Kirk? Like, and I told the guy, bro, you don't even believe that, so shut up, And of course, they're not going to say anything to me. They're protesting, whatever, because they have an agenda, And I'm saying to myself, as a Christian myself, if you're going to win people over to Christ, that ain't the way to do it. Okay, as someone who was saved at age 12, that is not the way to do it. Okay, and I told my sons that, and my sons were laughing, like, this is a joke. And I go, yeah, unfortunately, it's a joke, but it's not really a joke. And there are people like that who are bad witnesses of Christ. So, whatever. And they were laughing. It's like, James Hetfield, pedophile, get out of here. Anyway, we got to the stadium. We got there a little late again because of the traffic and stuff. We got there a little later. I wanted to. We missed the first band. Well, we missed the first half of the first band set. Suicidal Tendencies, which, by the way, cool story behind that also too. So, Rob, the bass player for Metallica, Robert Trujillo, he played in that band 30 years ago. Actually, the last time they came, well, not last time, but in fact, one show when Metallica came to Tampa back in 1994, he had actually was in that band opening for Metallica. Okay, now he's in Metallica now. But here's the cool story about that. His son played bass that day for Suicidal Tendencies. That's a cool story. So imagine your son now playing for the band you used to play for, and they're opening for you in your band now. So we got there to see that last half of the set. They were phenomenal. I wanted to get there early to see them, but what is. Got there. To some pictures. I have some friends there, mainly my old drummer Raphael, who was at the show. And quite frankly, Raphael's at every show we go to, whether it's locally down in South Florida or it's here in Tampa. He went to both shows actually. So we said we'll link up before Pantera started. We actually got a chance to hang out a little bit. Met my kids for the first time, saw my wife for the first time in a long time, and I saw him at Deftones back in March. But we hung out. I took some pictures, of course. I'll post on social media down the road. But it was cool. Getting to meet my kids for the first time and all that. It was really, really cool. But went back inside, watched Pantera. Pantera was fantastic. By the way, Pantera, never saw him live before. I'm going to see him again actually in a headlining spot in September down here in West Palm Beach. Now, granted, half their band is dead. Vinnie Paul, Dimebag Darrell, both passed away. Of course, Vinnie Paul died of health issues back in 2016 or 17 ish. And then, of course, the tragedy of Dimebag Darrell, he got murdered, unfortunately, in 2004 while performing for his new band at the time, Damage Plan, by some crazy fan on stage. I thought they were really, really good. I would never claim to be a big, massive Pantera fan, although I love the music. But it was great seeing them in that spot. I can only imagine when I see them in a headlining spot when they have the maximum, sound. Obviously, headlining bands get the better sound. But I thought they were great. I had a good time watching their set, and then of course, the Almighty Metallica came on stage, and again, I've seen Metallica many times over. I'm a diehard fan, but again, this is special for me because my wife and kids were there. Now, I'm gonna say right now, my wife Did have much fun. My wife's not a Metallica fan. Okay, she likes a couple of songs here and there, but she's not a fan. And she's she even joked around during the set. She goes, I'm really bored right now because every song sounds the same, and her and I we fight about that. So it is what it is. It's not her cup of tea, and I get that. However, my kids, loved the set. My kids were going nuts and knew all the songs. Obviously I get credit for that because I'm, obviously play it so much in the house and in the car. They know all the songs by now, and they loved it. They had a fantastic time. Even my oldest son, who kind of grew out of Metallica, like he got into Metallica when we were younger, when he was a kid, a baby rather, and then he's got older. He got into hip hop and rap, so he's got time Metallica. But he knew all the songs and he enjoyed the set. My youngest one loved it, of course. He was singing all the songs. They played a really good set. It sounded great. It was another great show. Was it my favorite Metallica show I've seen the 5? Probably not. Only because obviously when they were younger, 20, 30 years ago, when I saw them in Miami at the Miami Arena back in 1997 for the first time for the Load Tour, Poor Tour to Me, they sounded phenomenal. They were indoors too in the Miami Arena. I actually prefer Metallica indoors in a arena setting because it keeps the sound condensed. Having said that, though, they sounded phenomenal. It doesn't take away from the show today, or Sunday rather. And people always ask me too, because they people know I'm hardcore, and I post some videos on my social media. How are you such a big fan? And not only that, you don't see a lot of this. There is more now because as the band's grown, they're 44 years old now. They're generational now. There's 3 generations of fans there. They have grandfathers there now. You have people my age. You have people like my kids there. And now as they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and the legacy grows, they also get more multicultural. You see more Black people there, you see more Spanish people there, Indians, you name it. But that wasn't the case for years because heavy metal was almost always preferred by mostly Caucasian people. That's just what it is. But Metallica means a lot to me because people always ask you why you're such a big fan. I love music as a whole, number one. But I wasn't raised on heavy metal. I was raised on pop music, on Motown, on R&Bs and that. But I always credit my favorite artist of all time, Michael Jackson, for opening the window for me to rock music. Because if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be a fan of any rock music. But because of his music and what it appealed to, and he would do rock in his music, he had on Slash and those records, and had on Stevie Stevens with Dirty Diana, Eddie Van Halen for Beat It. That was my window to exploring music outside of what I was raised on. I got into Metallica in 1996, right before Load came out. People say, "Oh, well, 96 Load came out." No, but I became a fan of Metallica before Load came out. I became a fan of Metallica in early 96, about February and March of 1996. And I think the reason they appealed to me then, being raised in a very strict Christian household, I was, I loved going to church, but I also did not like the fact that growing up, and my mom knows the story, right, too, that I didn't like the fact that I was being sheltered in ways where I couldn't listen to this kind of music or just watch this kind of TV shows because of the rules, for example. And Metallica was the first band, they were rebellious with the lyrics. They were rebellious but not offensive. And I think that was the thing for me. The music was good, number one, but then they were also rebellious against the actually, hold on a second. I'm actually gonna change my banner here. That's the wrong banner. I'm just noticing that now. There we go. And it spoke to me at a time when I needed that. When I needed that voice. And it's always stuck with me. It's always stuck with me. And of course, the music is great, so it's hard to let it go. And through that, I've gotten into more bands as I gotten older. I obviously played in the bands and many bands through the years. But they were always the core band I listened to the most, outside of Michael, of course. That they spoke to me in ways that no other artist could have. You know what I'm saying? Where, feeling alienated as a kid, feeling like the oddball, the black sheep in certain spots in my life. They filled that role for me in ways that other artists couldn't. I say music is important to me because music is not just something you enjoy to listen to, but it's also coded language. It's also connection. You're not feeling alone. And Metallica for me has always been that for me. So that's why they mean a lot to me. I'm watching the band again, and again, I remember coming on here 8 years ago and saying the same thing. I'll say it again. I love Rob. Rob, the bass player. I love him. He's great. But God, I miss Jason sometimes though. Still, Jason Newsted is still my favorite band member of all time. Even James and Lars, even over James and Lars. So I, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm knocking Rob because I think Rob's incredible, but I miss Jason. But yeah, it was a phenomenal show. We had a great time. We got out of there. We ended up going to Orlando after to check in because they're checking the hotel because we were going to go to Disney next day. Real quick, also too, before we get to the next segment, I know everyone shits on Lars, but my God, the dude is still. Look, Lars has never been considered a great drummer by any means, and I acknowledge that. But Lars Ulrich is great for Metallica. Like you can put Lars in on the band with Metallica, but what he does with Metallica, it fits. And whatever he's done, it's worked. Okay, you may say it worked in spite of Lars. I disagree with that 100%. But you talk all you want. I think Lars is a solid drummer. He's not great. Obviously, if you were shitting on Lars back 20 years ago, you waste your time doing it now. He's not going to get better in his 60s. Okay, he just does what he does. I thought he sounded good for the most part. I had a couple mistakes here and there, but he sounded good for the most part. And again, what are you expecting from a guy who is turning 62 in December? Okay, playing that music, especially too. If anything, that's to be respected. One thing else. So the picking on Lars, it's old. Get over it. Stop. Also, one last thing also too on the Metallica front. I almost nailed the entire set list to a T. As I told you, this is night 2 of 2 nights at Tampa. So whatever they played on Friday, they won't play on Sunday. So Metallica has a core set list they do for both nights, and they switch out things here and there. I remember posting on social media saying that, I guarantee the first 3 songs were going to be Whiplash, From the Bell Tolls, and Ride of Lightning. And those were the first 3 songs. I almost nailed the entire set list. Like I maybe got too long. That's it. Where they would have done Fade to Black, for example, thank God they did Welcome Sanitarium, which top 3-4 song Metallica song for me all the time. So they played that song live. There was another spot I think they input another song. I can't remember what song it was. They played Sandman, of course. Like I said, I like Sandman, but again, I don't need to hear it because I'm hardcore. I don't need to listen, rather hear the real stuff. But I almost nailed the entire set list, pretty much. But other than like 1 or 2 songs. But phenomenal night. My kids had a great time. My wife had fun seeing us have fun more than anything else. But she's not a Metallica fan, so I get it. She said she kept saying, I am now justified in why I never want to see him live because I just didn't enjoy it the same way you did. Babe, I get it. That's not your stuff. It's not your thing. Metallica's my thing. But I appreciate you coming with me and with the kids, especially to experience this. Because who knows if you see them again live. They're in the 60s. I'm not saying they're going to retire anytime soon. They're still going strong. They still tour. They got a whole tour next year lined up. But, then they'll probably take a break after that and work on another album maybe if they decide to. But they are healthy, though. They look good. They sound good. James right now, vocally, sounds the best he's ever sounded in his career in terms of vocals. Not just in studio, but also live. And I will challenge anyone who disagrees with me on that one. As someone who's a hardcore fan, I will challenge anyone on that one. But yeah, phenomenal night. Then we we got back in the car by 11 o'clock. We went to the hotel, hour and 20 minutes ish drive out to a hotel in Orlando, checked in there, settled the kids in, pretty much passed out immediately within an hour. Woke up next morning, got breakfast at the hotel, which is great. Selling in the day, and then we took our time to Disney. Normally we go to Disney early in the morning, but because we had Lightning Lane passes, paid for already, and we had the rides we wanted to do already set in terms of times, I told my wife, listen, I am not rushing in there. I want to relax, ease into my day. So we got to Disney about close to noon, which is fine with me. Did a couple rides. We went to Animal Kingdom again for the second time in a few months, which is great because prior to like March, we hadn't gone to Animal Kingdom in 13 or 14 years. So we had the ride set. We did dinosaurs twice, which is that apparently that ride's going away. Apparently, supposedly it's going away. Then we did that twice. We did it first in the line that was kind of short. Then we did it with our passes. Then we did for the first time ever. Finally, I got to do the Cali Rapids river ride. This is called Cali River Rapids, whatever. Great ride, phenomenal. You get soaked though. You get soaked, but I prepared for that. I wore that day yesterday. I wore my my swim trunks. I wore my my Crocs. So if I got wet, no big deal. Plus it's Florida. Come on now, you're gonna get wet and you're gonna draw off in fucking 5 minutes. So it doesn't matter. And then we had Everest as our last ride on our 3 Lightning Lane picks. And we get to Everest at 3:00, and they tell us that the ride shut down due to technical issues. And we wake up a minute to see if it maybe comes back up again. Because I love Everest. Everest to me is a top 3 ride all time on the entire Disney property. Which, by the way, at some point this summer or later in the year, I'm going to do a top 10 best Disney rides ever in the park. Once I do all the rides, end up still shutting down, staying shut down about half an hour later. So my wife and I decided to go to guest relations and talk to people there and see if we can use that last pass, light lane pass, to apply to another park or somewhere else. And they did it for us. Not only did they give us the pass, they gave us additional rides on top of that with the light lane. So we ended up going to Hollywood Studios right after. We ended up doing Tower of Terror again, which I love. Which, by the way, you guys know the story about that on one of the pods I did back in March. Or I can't remember what it was. I think either March or late last year. Tower of Terror never did it, and only did the ride last year because my kids forced us to. Because my kids are nuts. They are they're thrill seekers. So we did the ride again. Loved it as always. We tried to do Rock and Roller Coaster again, but my youngest son Logan's a little too short for the ride. He's about an inch off. So we're hoping by the end of the year or maybe next year he gets another growth spurt and we can go on the ride with him. Unfortunately, the Rock and Roller Coaster by then will probably be gone. The theme would be changed to the Muppets. That's the plan apparently. So we ended up going to Rise of Resistance. The Star Wars experience was phenomenal every time I do it. And then we did Star Tours, which is always a great simulation ride. And then we left. We got home. We left there about 7:00. Left there about 7:00 ish. We got all hungry. We stopped doing the rest stops before Drum because we got really hungry. Ended up getting Wendy's. Got a burger. Got home about 10-ish, 10:30-ish, 10:15, I think it was. Got home and settled in and went to sleep. Tired as hell. My legs are tired. I'm tired. But my wife, unfortunately, has to work all day today. This is a long day. So I'm checking on her, make sure she's okay. I get an extra day to relax a little bit before we get to, before I go back to work tomorrow. But yeah, it was a great weekend. Metallica, Disney, all the great things. We done this weekend. So we have another trip, I think, planned in August. We may do another Disney trip also in July. Now people say, well, why do you do all these trips to Disney? Well, we pay for it because we are annual pass holders. So if I'm gonna get past this something, I'm gonna exhaust the living shit out of it. You know what I'm saying? I already maximize. They say if you go 4 times a year, you maximize the value of those passes. And I've already gone, I think, 3 times this year alone, and I got 2 trips planned already out the chute. Probably another one later in the year. So yeah, we maximize those passes to a hilt. So that's just that. All right. So great. Again, another great weekend. And like I said, there was so much. It meant so much to me, to my kids, my wife, to see Metallica with me. Metallica means a lot to me, and I'm glad they were there. You see them, you watch on YouTube, see my T-shirt, one of many shirts I have of theirs. So, all right. Let's see. I have here on the docket a couple things here. You guys know I've kept the political volume down since the election in November, just because I'm burnt out. I don't care. I don't care. I care, but I don't care. However, I am very, 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 very not curious, but this Elon Musk Donald Trump thing is so fascinating that you have to keep an eye on it. And I'm not surprised this happened. I knew one or the other were turning each other. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Having said that, this does feel kayfabe. People say, what do you mean kayfabe? What does that mean? Well, kayfabe kayfabe is a wrestling term that means scripted or fake. I'm not saying it is fake, but it wouldn't shock me if all this is a distraction to something else going on. Donald Trump is a PR master. Okay. So if Donald Trump is doing this on purpose just to distract from other things that's going on, it wouldn't shock me. This is me now. The left now is in love with Elon again because he's anti-Trump. At least that's what he's professing. I don't know. Probably not. Probably maybe some of them are, but no. I think it's kind of silly to think that. I think it's very short-sighted to think that. And I think the problem stems from the fact that that bill that Trump wants to pass, the big beautiful bill he wants to pass, Elon is very he's very against some of the things in it, I guess, and Trump is like no. But I'm following enough to know the basics, but honestly, I'm so over politics now. Not because I don't want to talk about it, because I will have discussion about it on the podcast. That's what we do here. I'm just so tired of it's draining. I just want to enjoy my life. I know it sounds selfish. People say, you need to care. There's a lot of friends might say you need to care. No, I don't need to care. I care about when I want to care. You know what I'm saying? Because I've cared too much for the last couple of years and for longer than that. That my priority now at this point is my wife and kids. And my mental health is more important than what you people are telling me what I should care and care about. Okay? So that's just that. And I will not compromise on that whatsoever. So, but this Elon Trump thing is kind of weird, kind of fascinating, kind of real, kind of not real. But we'll see where it goes. We definitely will see where it goes. Let's see here. So, I saw this report. I told you guys, my top 3 music acts all time. Obviously, MJ, Michael Jackson, 1. Metallica, number 2. Queen is my number 3. You guys know that, right? My big 3. There was a report, according to the Daily Mail, that Freddie Mercury, the long legendary singer, frontman for Queen, has a daughter. I'm gonna read an excerpt from this article from the Daily Mail. All right, so a new biography of the rock star Freddie Mercury claims he had a daughter that was kept a secret from the public. Lauder reports that writer Leslie Ann Jones has interviewed a woman identified as only B for her new book, Love, Freddie, a biography about the Queen frontman. According to Daily Mail, B said in the book that Freddie Mercury was and is my father, and the two had a very close and long relationship from the moment I was born and throughout the final 15 years of his life. The new book claims that B, who was 48, was conceived in 1976 when Mercury had an affair with the wife of one of his friends. Quote, the circumstances of my birth may seem, by most people's standards, unusual and even outrageous, unquote, B is quoted as saying in the book. That should not come as no surprise. It never detracted from his commitment to love and look after me. He cherished me like a treasured possession. Mercury, of course, died in 1991, and B claims in the book that those who have been aware of my existence kept his greatest secret out of loyalty to Freddie. B approached Jones with her story and a collection of 17 volumes of journals Mercury entrusted to her, according to the Daily Mail. Quote, my instinct was to doubt everything, but I am absolutely sure she is not a fantasist, Jones told the publication. No one could have faked all this. Why would she have worked with me for 3.5 years, never demanding anything? So when I first saw the story verbatim, just like randomly, I'm like, no way. No way. But then I paused. I'm like, you know what? Let's take a step back a second. We all know Freddie Mercury was gay, except he never actually said he was gay. He actually had relationships with women also. People don't know that, but the relationships with the men are the ones that have always been the most prominent ones. I know, obviously, the prominent one female he had relationship with, Mary Austin, love of his life, but also the one that after he started having relationship with Ben. But Freddie Mercury's never actually professed being actually just gay. Like, obviously he does love men. He liked men. We know that already. He had boyfriends, but he was never actually confessed to being gay. In other words, he wasn't like, I only like men. So on one hand, there's the whole idea of like, oh, no way he have a daughter because he's like men. But again, Freddie Mercury's lifestyle was very fluid in a way where he just did what the fuck he wanted. He didn't care. He just did what he wanted. Now, he probably preferred men, but that doesn't mean but I'm sure he probably had a relationship with women also too. So I guess the larger question is more so, do I believe this story? I would have said no maybe a couple weeks ago when I saw the story initially, but now I'm more apt to believing it because this person has not actually asked for anything, at least that we know of anyway, publicly. It's fascinating, yes. And who knows? Who knows? It wouldn't shock me if it's true. I mean, the only way you're gonna solve this issue is take a DNA test, right? You take a DNA test and you see exactly where that actually stands. And that's that. You know, now knowing whether or not she has done this yet, I don't know. We'll see. But definitely a very fun story, I guess. I mean, obviously, from what she's saying, Freddie Mercury didn't abandon her because from what she's saying, Freddie Mercury was actually in her life and very much a part of her life, and didn't. And for the record, Freddie Mercury was very private. Like, he was very open about his sexuality in terms of like promiscuous whatnot, but the things kept private. For example, we didn't know he had AIDS. Like, people assumed he had AIDS. Those were rumors for years that he had AIDS or was HIV positive, but no one knew the official word on that until literally the day before he passed away in 1991, because he purposely kept that out in the public, even though people assumed that and people made assumptions, and we saw his health deteriorating in those last years, but he never actually confirmed it until the day before he died. So who's to say that this isn't true? I'll say that. All right, we'll get out of here. We are in the NBA Finals. We'll discuss that. We have a podcast planned later tonight. I'm gonna record. And we're gonna do an NBA show with a guest here tonight, hopefully. Which, by the way, I'll update you guys on that. There's some tweaks come to the feed also too. So I want to share with you guys my top 5. EJ top 5. Bring it again. My top 5 most hated NBA teams in the history of the league. I haven't done top 5 in a long time. I'm gonna make this more of a staple again on my solo episodes. So here are my top 5 most hated teams in the NBA in order from 5 to 1. All right. Number 5, the Orlando Magic. People say, Orlando Magic, why? Well, my team, you see in the screen here, is Miami Heat. So our state rival is who? It's Orlando Magic. And I remember the early days in the 90s when Orlando started in the NBA the year after Miami started. And Orlando got ahead of us pretty early because when they got Shaq in the draft, even though we made playoffs first before they did in 92, they eventually was fast-tracked to championship conversation because of Shaq and Penny Hardaway. So I was very envious of that, number one. And there were state rivals on top of that, too. So my hatred never left. You know, state rivals, very easy to hate. Number 4, the Charlotte Hornets. For similar reasons, too, because they were our first rival because they came into the league the same year as Miami Heat in 1988. And they were a little rivalry there, here and there. And I never really stopped from that, from everything else. Number 3, the Indiana Pacers. Yeah. So obviously a lot had to do with the Heat Pacers rivalry in recent years. When the Big Three era, that's part of it. But this actually started in the '90s. Number one, when the Heat used to play in Indiana for years. They never win there. It's hard to win there for them. Number two, you guys know my complicated New York Knicks history. I'm a Heat fan. I did like Patrick Ewing as a kid, and the Knicks, and were my number 2 team for a while because of Ewing. And when the Heat weren't good, the Knicks were always in the conversation. Remember the Knicks played the Bulls and Jordan back in those days, they would also play with Indiana, and I hate Indiana, so that made it easy. Reggie Miller's easy to hate. The only time we were for the Pacers is when they played my number 2 team on this list here. There's the Chicago Bulls. Okay, I've hated the Bulls since I was a child. Okay, hated Jordan. I know Jordan's the greatest of all time, but I've hated Jordan since I was a child. And those Bulls teams, when everybody was rooting for the Bulls, growing up in high school, middle school, and all that stuff, I was anti-Jordan, I was anti-Bulls, couldn't stand it. I was sick of them winning all the time. So fuck them. And number 1, this should be easy, you guys. Boston Celtics. Obvious reasons. Celtics are just, I respect them. I respect Larry Bird. I respect Kevin Garnett, the legacy, the 18 rings, the whole 9. But they're easy to hate, man, because it's Boston. Boston teams are easy. For me, Boston teams are pretty easy to hate. Outside the Red Sox, actually, I think the Red Sox are the only team I think I have respect for. When I say that, relatively speaking to, I don't hate the Red Sox in the same way. It's really complicated for me. The Celtics is fun to hate. And obviously the Heat rivalry, the Celtics, made it even easier to hate them. But yeah, those are my 5 teams. So you got Orlando at 5, Charlotte at 4, Indiana at 3, Chicago at 2, and then Boston at number 1. My most hated teams in NBA history. So, all right, that'll do for me here on this podcast. Dated, of course, June 10th, 2025. A fairly long one. Now, normally I do these 30 to 40 minutes, but I went over time a little bit, but no big deal. Anyway, I am on X, formerly known as Twitter, at EJ Christian 7. Check out all the content we have on this podcast. I'll be announcing some cool ideas here in the coming days. But yeah. YouTube page at Earnestly Pod. Please subscribe, share it with a friend. TikTok, of course, come to the show at Earnestly Pod. Instagram, Earnestly Pod as well, too. Until the next episode, we will talk to you guys soon. God bless y'all, and see ya.